Hi everyone, I wanted to show you how I make skull keychains. First of all, I need to use my mould, and I use this silicone mould. It's actually a silicone mould to make skull shaped ice cubes that I got from online, but I use it to make resin pieces like I do the owl mould I've got that I've used for candles before. And like the owl mould, I use wax in this as well to make little wax skulls. So first of all, I needed to give this a good clean out and remove any wax residue, because obviously I want a good cast from this. So I'm just using baby wipes and a bit of water just to clean off any wax residue, any bits of dust, that sort of thing. So obviously anything that's in there will stick and be part of the resin forever if I don't remove it. And then once I'm sure that the mould is clean, I'll give it a nice wipe over with a towel just to dry it off a bit, just to make sure again that it's dry and it's not going to affect the cast later on. And obviously I just turn the mould inside out as best as I can, just so I can get in all those little nooks and crannies and remove any residue. And you have to be, be quite particular. Make sure you remove every speck of dust, every little bit of something that could stick into your resin cast, because otherwise it will affect the overall quality of what you make. And then once you're satisfied that the mould is perfectly clean, just leave it to one side to finish drying off completely, and obviously get rid of any dust from around your work area, any bits from your work area. And then it's time to mix the resin. Now, to mix the resin, I use this little measuring cup because if I fill this measuring cup, that does pretty much the 4 skulls. Sometimes I have to add a little bit extra, but not much. And I like to mix small batches, because then if anything goes wrong, at least I've only used up a small amount. And this resin I got online, and it is a 50-50 mix, so it's a 1-to-1 ratio. You can obviously do it by weight. I haven't got scales at the moment because mine broke, so I use this little measuring cup, and it's worked out fine so far. So what I do is I do whatever the amount is that I want to create of resin. I do half part A, half part B, and then it's just a case of mixing them both together to obviously make the resin. And also just make sure as well, when you've poured out what resin you're going to use, make sure you wipe the edge of the bottle that the mixture comes from before you put the lid back on, else you can have problems where it gets really sticky and it's hard to remove the tops off the bottles. And just carefully make sure you've got as close to the exact amount as you can. You need it to be pretty exact, otherwise you're going to start having problems with it not setting properly or being a bit weird. And then what you have to do is you have to mix nice and slowly and carefully. I'm mixing a bit too fast here, but basically mix nice and slowly. And I've found if you mix it for exactly 5 minutes, which is what it said on the instructions, mix it for exactly 5 minutes, and I find it works out really good every time. Now here I'm mixing a bit fast, so this batch did end up with a lot of air bubbles in, but I'm not too worried about that because I can cover it up by painting the pieces later on. But obviously you want to try and mix it as slowly as possible, but also mix for the 5 minutes to make sure all the resin and the hardener are fully mixed together. Then once you're convinced it's all mixed together, as you can see there's a lot of air bubbles in that, which some of them still remained once the cast had finished. Pour it out so it comes very slowly from your little container. Have it so it's like a thin stream of resin that's pouring from the cup or whatever you've mixed it in to the mould, and also have it lifted above the mould so it's got time for some of the air bubbles to escape before they hit the mould. Here I was rushing a bit here, but what I normally do is I have the cup a little bit higher up and pour slower, and I find that reduces the air bubbles drastically. You can also, when there's large air bubbles appear on the surface, if you get like a lighter, you can actually hold the flame of the lighter close to the bubble but not touching, and it'll pop the bubble for you. That way you can get rid of the large air bubbles that appear on the top, and over time a lot of the air bubbles will escape. They will rise to the surface and pop. This mixture that I've got, it's one that off gases quite easily, so I haven't had too many problems with air bubbles. I've had one batch where there was a lot of bubbles, which was this batch, but the other batches I've done have come out pretty clear, so I can't really grumble. And then make sure you scrape the inside of your mixing container to get every last little drop of resin out, because obviously resin is expensive and you don't want to waste it. And also, if you've not quite got as much as you thought, it'll just help top up that last section on the mould if it needs it. Then once you've done that, it's a case of leaving it to set for 24 hours. If your room's cold, it's going to need the 24 hours. I found my room's quite warm, so sometimes I only need overnight, like about 12 hours, but I always leave them 24 to be on the safe side anyway. So basically, if you make it one morning, don't take it out till the following morning or the evening. Just to give it plenty of time to set properly, because first of all it'll sort of look solid, but if you take it out the mould, it's still quite bendy and squishy, so it's kind of like a putty consistency, and then over time it gets harder and harder until it's like the resin consistency where it's quite hard. So it's a case of making sure it's all poured into the mould, and then adding to the resin whatever you want to add. So I've got some where I've added glitter. I've got some like this where I've added flower petals at the end. So you can do different things inside the resin to show up later on. I've got one where I've put beads inside, one where I've put flower petals inside, like rose petals and stuff, and one where I've put like glitter and stickers and things. So you can put all sorts of things in the resin. All you've got to be careful of is how it will affect the setting of the resin. So what I tend to do first of all is give it a really good mix for 5 minutes, and then I put into the mould what I want to stick into the resin, like the beads or the glitter or whatever, and then pour the resin over the top, and I find that works better. If you're using beads though, you're going to need a layer of resin at the bottom first, because otherwise you could have the beads right at the surface if you put them in before the resin. But other than that, I found that works out quite well. So yeah, I'll show you what they look like once they're fully set. And once I had left these to set, to get the pieces out, you just literally bend the mould and push. They come out dead easy out of this, and when they come out, they look like this. Obviously, they don't come out with the shiny surface on. They do come out looking matte, a bit more like this one. See how it looks a bit more matte on the front? But after they've had a coating of the resin on the front, like on the outside, and left to dry for overnight again, they look like this. And then it's just a case of adding the keychain piece. This one, what I've done is I've drilled a hole through and put the keychain through like that. I've just got to get off the little bit hanging off the back. This one's got little rose petals inside. As you can see, it's not quite as clear on the front as it is on the back, but I didn't mind. I thought that still looked quite nice. This one, it's got the beads in, and the beads have all settled into one place accidentally, but never mind. These are just experiments. And then these ones are like little rhinestones, but you can't see them really through. But I was experimenting with this. Either way, I'll still use it as a key ring. I'll show you the one I've got on my keys. The one I have on my keys is this one, which has the stars. That's the one I put the stars in, and I thought that one turned out really well, and I really liked it. And this one, I've got like these little, you know, you get them hook and eyes, like if you're sticking up your neck curtain or something. Well, I got like a miniature one. This is off another keyring, and I've just like drilled a small hole and then screwed the skull on, like so. So it looks like this. There are a few air bubbles in. I mean, I can't say I'm perfect at this at the minute, but I'm learning how to do it. So that's 3 of the skulls that I made in that last batch. The other one, I believe my daughter's got, because it's not here. I've got this one where there wasn't a full amount of resin in the mould, but so it didn't do the full skull, it just did the front, but I kind of like it. I kind of like the effect. And this one I can see a little bit more of the flowers. There is a lot of air in. I mixed it too fast because I was in a rush, so a lot of air bubbles got in it, never mind. And then that's the other one where I haven't put another coating on the front yet, so it still looks matte. So that's the difference between if you put another coating of resin on the outside afterwards and there, and if you don't. So this one will have another coating of resin. I had this on my keys, but then I made a better one, so I've swapped the one on my keys for this one. The last batch I made came out different. These ones have got way more air bubbles in. And yeah, but there's a lot of air bubbles in there. I haven't put the coating on the outside yet, so I'm hoping these will clear up a bit. But I don't mind. I quite like the colour. I quite like the colour of them, and I might try painting them or something to see what effects I can get. And these had glitter in. Some of the glitter floated to the surface on that one. This one, the glitter did really well and stayed in place. That one's not too bad, and that one, the glitter stayed at the bottom for some reason. I'm trying different things so I can get different effects, and obviously, you know, mixing different glitters and things. But this one, if I do like a bit of a colour wash on these to get the details to show up, I think they'll look really nice. So I'm hoping that'll work. So what I'll do, before I even think about coating in resin, let me try that one. So these are the ones that are finished. I've just got to put keychains on them. These ones need a bit more work. So this one I'm going to put a little bit of black paint on. Just a little bit. Just get my brush. I'm just using acrylic paint, and then what I'll do is I'll coat it in resin later to hopefully make it stay in place forever. So I'm going to paint it first. I'm not doing it, you know, perfect or anything. This is literally to make the details stand out. I'm trying to make it as smooth as I possibly can. Like so. Then I'm going to take a tissue, or kitchen roll. I'm just going to go over where I want the details to show. Oops. Obviously it's awkward when it's this shade, because it's quite warm in here, and the acrylic's thin. It's drying quite quick. As you can see, it sticks to the paint quite well, actually. Ooh, nice. I'm just thinking, should I get a smaller brush and do the black? Like do the eye socket's a bit darker. Not bad. That makes a big difference, doesn't it? Look, I just don't like the sort of rough look of the paint on the inside. I can make it look a bit neater. Yeah. I'm just getting rid of the like sort of blobby looking bits. Oops. And then I'm just hoping that this will stay in place with a bit of resin on the top. It'll sort of seal the paint in forever, like. That's my plan anyway. I'm going to do it while my room's warm, so hopefully it'll dry quick. Just colour that bit a bit more. It's alright, it looks like makes it look like it's just chipped off more than anything there. There you go. I'm going to give him a bit more. So I think I'm just going to have to build up in layers on the eye socket in the middle. Oops, sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on building up the layers, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, so that's what it looks like so far. And then what I've done is I've just created a hole through there, and I'm going to attach the keyring before I varnish, before I put a layer of resin over the top. Because if I do this now, it saves me faffing around later, and also I can hang it up by this to let it dry. this is the fiddly bit that takes a bit of finagling. I'll put the chain back on in a minute. So obviously I've made the hole, but I've got to get through with the hook. That's my phone going off. Just excuse my phone going off. I'm going to make the hole bigger, aren't I? Okay. I've got to try and make the hole bigger without breaking the resin. Obviously I could do with like a little drill bit or something, but I'll experiment with that later. There we go, made it a bit bigger. Then it's just a case of pushing the ring through. And then what I do is I stick the keyring loop on. Obviously these are jewellery pliers I'm using. That would be used for making jewellery. And then what I do is where the join is, I make sure that's on the inside of the resin, because it ain't going to come off then. Like so. So that's how I attach it to the keychain. And then it's going to be just a case of me mixing some more resin to coat the outside, which I'm going to do. So I'm going to go and mix a bit of resin, just a little bit just to do this, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Just do it nice and smoothly, smooth and even strokes. You want the smallest amount you can on your brush. Oops. And the reason I attach the keychain first is because it helps me hold it like this. Just make sure there's no gaps. And what this will do is obviously it gives it the shine, and it'll seal in the paint I've put on, prevent it from chipping. Make sure I get plenty in the eye sockets. And then that's a case now of just hanging it up. I'll hang it up by the ring so it's like this, and I'll leave that to dry overnight, and then that'll be ready, and it'll look shiny like this, but it'll be dry. And that's it. That's how to make a skull keychain. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.